During the boom of Flash animation, no genre was more popular than the brawler genre. These were short, high-impact fights, either showcasing one-on-one battles or a one-man army against a plethora of foes. Sprites from video games like Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, and Sonic were often used early on, until artists began developing their own original characters. These characters were stick figures, and because they were easy to draw and the artists didn't have to worry about animating expressions, clothing, or even writing a storyline, they soon became the de facto standard for all brawler toons. Now, if you wanted to see the best fights on the internet, there was only one place to satisfy that bloodlust: Stick Figure Death Theater, aka SFDT.com. This was the site, not just for the best brawlers, but also for the immense amount of brawler content. Every burgeoning Flash artist uploaded their stuff here before anywhere else. The only place that came close to it was probably Newgrounds, which was really more of a general animation site rather than just fight-focused. If you made it to the top of the most viewed on SFDT, you knew you had something special. And everybody on AIM would be linking it like crazy. This was your average stick figure brawler toon. Now, this is fine. Nothing inherently bad about it. Something like this would be shared on the internet to a decent amount of success. There were thousands of videos like this on SFTT, and after a while, they did tend to blend together. But one day, a toon was uploaded that made it the most viewed faster than anything else. Something that completely changed the game and redefined the standards for the genre. This was Xiao Xiao. The chasm of quality between it and its contemporaries was insane. The fluidity of the animation, the incredible choreography, and even the sound design was unlike anything else. Nobody had ever seen a brawler toon of this caliber before. It was like watching a movie, and it was all created by one man, named Zhu. This was actually the third episode of the Xiao Xiao series, but you'd never know it from watching. What made these cartoons so shareable was that you didn't need to know the history of any of the characters or the backstory. All you needed to focus on was the fight. People watching from episode 1 would get just as much enjoyment as somebody starting with episode 3. There were two elements that Zhu understood better than anybody else: pacing and escalation. In a good action scene, the hits are always getting harder and the stakes are always getting higher, little by little. A typical brawler toon would have two characters fighting in the same place, doing the same moves, and keeping that same level of energy throughout. In Xiao Xiao, the scenes in danger was always changing. Within the span of a few seconds, the character would be fighting one guy, to fighting 3 guys with swords, to fighting 10 guys with guns, bombs, and who knows what else. It never stayed stagnant, and continually kept the viewer engaged and wondering what would happen next. This was all showcased by Zhu's biggest influence in films for years before. Chan, Yen, Fat. Zhu wasn't just a consumer of action cinema, he was a student, and a damn good one. There were 9 episodes, and the start was quite impressive. While the first episode lacked the polish and the smoothness that the series was known for, it still dabbled in concepts that were rare to brawlers at the time. Splitting into multiple forms, stacked weapon combos, and intricate choreography started here, and would only get better as the show went on. Episode 2 was actually a game, one of several that would be made in the series. It only used one button, the spacebar, and the player would hit it when a meter reached its max level. The animation quality here is vastly improved from episode 1, and it also showcases Zhu's silly sense of humor. Much like Jackie Chan's action comedy medley, Zhu loved implementing jokes and gags into his cartoons. They added a lot of personality and character to the stick figures that were usually emotionless or overly edgy and brooding in other toons. You'd never think a character with no voice or face could be charming, but he made it possible. Half the fun in this game would be you purposely messing up so you could see all the animations that would happen when you failed. Episode 4 was another game, this time an on-rail shooter like Time Crisis or Area 51. These types of games were very popular online for their pick-up-and-play nature and because they could be completed in just a few minutes. Great dopamine hits with great animation, you really couldn't go wrong. What really blew me away though was how good the 3D animation looked. Flash games weren't doing 3D on this level back then, and the camera movements really did make it feel like one of those stand-up shooters you'd find in the movie theaters. Excellently produced, and fun as hell to play. This one stands up today. Episode 5 was when the production quality got amped up dramatically. Gone are the bare empty backgrounds of yore, and in their place, actual scenery and set dressing. Instead of everything being one solid camera angle, the camera now moves and zooms in dynamically and has a ton more life to it. It follows the fighters as they battle, and really makes it feel cinematic and professional. This episode is all about weapons combat and energy blasts, concepts used sparingly in the past, but now filling in the entire focus of an episode. It's a great watch, and the ambulance gag at the end never fails to put a smile on my face. Episode 6 would be another game, a button masher, where the player would hammer the spacebar as fast as possible to win. This is by far the weakest in the series. Not only is it the least fun to watch, but all it really did was make me want an actual Xiao Xiao game, something like Final Fight, where I could really control my characters and do combos on the fly, as opposed to just hitting the same button over and over. It was too short and lacked that zoo creativity. I never revisit this episode whenever I rewatch the series. Episodes 7 and 8 are the most over-the-top and extravagant episodes ever made, and the only episodes to have an official title, Mutilator. And man, Zoo went crazy on these. Since these were the final episodes of the show, no expense was spared. This one has the protagonist taking on a much more stealthy approach at first, and seems more Sam Fisher rather than Jackie Chan. But like every game of Hitman I play, it inevitably ends in gunfire. Gunplay and explosives take center stage here, and the Matrix influences are off the charts. This episode does everything. Signature Xiao Xiao CQC, slow motion shootouts, and even a bunch of car chases. It's a wild episode, and you can see Zoo's ambition and drive for the series reaching its apex. His constant need to experiment and go outside of his comfort zone is obvious, and it's a joy to watch. Everything he learned culminates in these final 2 episodes, and while the ending is kind of confusing, it's clear Zoo told the story that he wanted to tell. Episode 9 brought my dreams of a real Xiao Xiao game into reality. This is the Final Fight style beat 'em up that I was waiting for, and it scratched that itch perfectly when it was released. It has the sticky boy breaking the 4th wall and actually fighting on the same desk where all of Xiao Xiao tunes are made. You can see his animations desktop and a one-to-one recreation of Zoo's room throughout the entire game. The gameplay is fairly rudimentary and can get a bit repetitive. You really only have 2 or 3 moves and a super, and no way to upgrade or to get new moves. But that fantasy of playing in that universe was still fulfilled, albeit it doesn't quite stand up too much today. Supposedly, this was just the demo version, and the full game was supposed to be much more fleshed out, but ultimately never materialized. Xiao Xiao is the most influential stick figure series of all time, and its influence carries on today. Animators like Alan Becker with the Animation vs. Animator series, Hune with the Hune's Dojo series, and the Madness series all continue that kinetic chaos that embodied Xiao Xiao. In fact, there's more beautifully animated stick figure fights on YouTube than there ever was on Stick Death. His legacy burns strong, and I'm glad I was able to see it firsthand.